I think I'm live. Okay, I might have to fucking switch this shit around because I'm not gonna be able to see anybody's messages and stuff. I just want you to know, if you are an animatarian, that I am very, very likely to murder a mosquito in the process of this channeling. So I just want you to know that, in case you're not down for that, just full disclosure that, just don't blood suck on me. It's a simple requirement, I feel like, and I think it's easy enough to meet. Hello, welcome. Just looking for my chapstick and not finding it. So we're just gonna give it a minute, see if anybody else is gonna join. And no pressure to stay if you don't want to be the only one here. Or if you want to be the only one here. And first, do you have a question or a topic of concern or interest that you would like me to address? Otherwise, let's see. What is there to talk about? Well, I was talking about that I was a little late because I was being harassed by a bug. But what I was thinking about earlier today, and what I will talk about channeling wise, is I was having this funny moment where I was taking into account a bunch of readings I've done. Hello, welcome. If you have any questions, there's a little question box by the comment box. You can send a question, or you can just ask it in the chat, and I will say whatever comes, or if you have a topic of interest. But right now, I just was thinking about what thread sews together a lot of the readings that I give. Hello. What themes are almost in every reading, right? Because I think that when someone gives enough reading or advice or sees enough people in the same situation, they are someone who will start to create a lexicon of information that's just standard procedure that people can just know and should know as a basis of modus operandi, of operation, of getting things done. So as I was saying before, there were a few other people on here, is if you have a question, there's a little question box next to the comment box. You can put in a question. If you have a topic of interest or concern, you can also just put it in the comment box if you don't need your shit to be private. But otherwise, hello again, welcome back. Questions in the question box. Otherwise, I'm talking about, a sort of hello, welcome. Questions to the question box. They're anonymous. Unless they're long, in which case I have to click on them to open them. Welcome. Questions to the question box. Otherwise, you can put your question in the comments section if you don't care if other people see it. But, I will answer whatever comes as I am able to answer whatever comes. And right now, I'm going to just talk about beliefs, because this is a theme that I go through in almost every reading, and I will say it 7 different ways till Sunday, and until I get a question, then I'll go on that tangent. But what I'm going to say about beliefs is that every perspective, every state of thought, I'm not taking requests to be in my live, but you can ask questions in the question box or in the comment section. So every decision that you make is its own frequency, right? It has its own space that it would take up should you take that action. It exists in its own, let's say, realm or dimension, but I really mean like frequency. It reaches its own frequency. So every belief that can be conceived of in existence is actually valid. And that's why when people say it's all love, I like to translate it into you don't have to invalidate what you don't prefer, because people forget what all means. And it's really important that you don't forget the context of your mantras, right? Because if you lose connection to the context, then you lose connection to the power. And then you end up putting yourself in a situation where you use your willpower to feel powerless, which you're free to do, because existence is actually neutral. It will support you in your negative beliefs. It will support you in your positive beliefs. It'll support you in your neutral beliefs and everything along that spectrum. And we can know that to be true because there are people on this earth with positive beliefs and people on this earth with negative beliefs. Let's say mostly, okay, because everybody is an amalgamation of things. But someone who leans towards positive belief systems, someone who leans towards negative belief systems, these individuals are all supported by existence. They are all created by existence. They all come from existence. They're all made of existence. They all are existence, and thus they are all options of how you can be within existence. So when you use your power to allow yourself to feel powerless, which also means taken advantage of, victimized, put upon, targeted, that is the opposite spectrum of egotism. There are people who think that the world revolves around them in the sense that they deserve everything that they want, that they think is good. And then there are people who imagine that the universe is literally conspiring against them just to fuck their life up. Now, existence has a lot of jobs to do. So I'm just not going to presume that it has negative intent towards me. And how I do that is by existing as a person who doesn't assume the worst out of the circumstances that I'm in. That doesn't mean that I don't allow myself to be aware of when I'm in a situation that is negative or dangerous or violent. But it means that as soon as I recognize that, I put myself in a situation that I prefer, and I don't make a judgment about that other than the fact that I want nothing to do with it. If I'm in a situation where I can actually announce that, like, I don't want anything to do with this, I will. If I'm in a situation where that's not going to help, but I just need to get the fuck out of Dodge, I will also do that. But I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I am co-signing the belief that that happened to me because a whole fucking narrative that I made up that has nothing to do with what existence is doing, because existence has a lot of jobs and it's not just conspiring to fuck my day up. That being said, it is everywhere, doing everything as everything. So it is OG and actually assisting you in planning out the framework of your existence. That being said, free will, because you know we were going to have a word witch moment. So free will, free, and friend come from the same Proto-Indo-European word F-R-E-I, which could have been pronounced free, fra. I don't know, because Proto-Indo-European was spoken, not written. But that word means to love. And the word and name will means either to choose or to wish, which means the origin meaning, the base motherfucking foundational ground goddamn floor of the meaning of free will is to love, to choose. To love, to choose. So existence allows you to love to choose the boohoo, boohoo, Eeyore donkey. Nobody likes me. Nobody cares. I guess I'll just go home. That's boohoo, boohoo, Eeyore donkey. Or in an existence where you're like, wow, I am myself and that is fully mine, with which I can love to choose shit, and therefore I'm gonna ride this bitch till the wheels fall off and enjoy myself. Also, free will, to love to choose your own excellence, your own better judgment, your own betterness. That also is supported. And I know that because I've lived both ways, and existence didn't drop a bomb on me or an anvil, not once. So I do have a question, so let's get into it. All right, I hope it's okay that I share this because otherwise I can't open it. Recently took a class of mine. Oh, yay. And your lessons are still permeating. Awesome. Can you speak a bit about fear and how to accept and not fight it? Yes. I can, actually. I think this is a great question. I hope you don't mind that I leave it up there. If you do, just type it and I'll take it away. So what we fear Well, fear can be a few things, right? It can be an instinctual reaction to seeing something that you have never witnessed before or that shocks you, right? It can be instinctual, like if you see fucking lion coming at you, it's just gonna be instinctual to run the fuck away. That's been ingrained in the DNA for generations and generations and generations. Hello, welcome everybody. And so that's a natural instinctual fear response that happens in probably the reptilian part of the brain that is like, oh shit, that thing wants to eat me and I don't want to die. Hi. So that's, let's say, a instinctual, non-premeditated fear instinct that is there to ultimately save your life. Okay? Fear makes sense. However, there is this other motherfucking thing that is not called fear, which is called anxiety. And a lot of people mistake anxiety for fear. Fear is when you actually have a tangible, palpable, physical motherfucking reason to be like, I need to be away from here. Like, there is someone with a goddamn gun. There's a lion. There's a tsunami. That is a natural response. Anxiety is when some shit hasn't taken place yet, but you allow your mind to act as if it gets up and walks away while you sleep, does the shit that it tells you you're incapable of, and comes back and reports it. Like, nah, bitch, I already tried that while you was sleeping. Let me just let you know. It's impossible. It's impossible. And so that is anxiety, where you're in a position where you're allowing things that there's actually no evidence of for your existence to then create in you a fear response that is based basically on phantasms and illusions or delusions. There's also in fear, other than the kind that's just instinctual, again, other than the kind that you just fucking bump into in the midst of doing your existence, when you create a state of anxiety that then creates a fear response from phantasm, something that doesn't actually exist, then you're in a situation where you inherently do not trust existence. You're saying, whatever is unknown to me is a threat. And existence is fundamentally neutral. It will give you things that are, let's say, very obviously positive, and that is a highly, highly subjective thing, or very highly negative, and you can take that however you want. I gave that example in another video, another time, when someone can say something negative to you thinking they're gonna fuck your day up, and you can just turn that shit on its head and fuck their day up instead because they thought they had something to give to you, which was their own negativity, and you were like, no thanks. My frequency is too high for that. So when you know that existence is OG and has your back regardless of whether something takes place that you prefer or you don't prefer, then you are putting yourself in a position where you don't create, let's say, intentional anxiety / fear response, because there are conditionings that we all get from society that build up certain kinds of anxieties that we didn't know that we were building until we are aware of them, and then we have to deconstruct that. But there's also shit that we just make up or decide about our existence that's premature decision making that comes from a position of not believing ultimately that a positive outcome is possible. And that comes from attaching a negative belief to what is actually positive. For instance, when people say, that's too good to be true. So shit can't be too good and true. That means your life is gonna fucking suck, okay? Because the truth has to be good, motherfucker. The truth has to be good. And so that's another thing about trusting existence. Knowing that ultimately the truth of the circumstances is going to benefit you, even if it comes through in a way that you don't prefer, knowing I may now use this experience to benefit me at however I so choose. And I know that I can do that because free will means to love to choose, which is whatever you prefer. Some people prefer to feel like Eeyore, okay? Some people really get a lot of joy out of that. And so that is the quality and the frequency of existence and the wave that they're going to be riding on. And that's also going to be what ends up being the self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the self-fulfilling prophecy is also, if I know that I am the only person who exists to be myself, and I'm not afraid to discover who that is, even through previous ideas of who I thought that was, who I proved not to be to myself, then nothing can stop me from having everything that I need, which I am also subscribing to my wants. Because I also say that being in a state of wanting is being in a state of not having. And so more important to want what you need, because you will get what you need, but wanting is a state of being without. So that is my answer to that. And I have another question. I hope that was helpful to you. Welcome everybody. Oh, I got a few. All right, well, these are all long, so I hope you can see my little face. These are all a little longer, so I'm gonna have to put your business on the street, but I hope you know that. Thoughts on having goals and desires to be in different and diverse group scenes, yet finding it difficult because I see. Okay, so you're very welcome. My opinion about this is, I didn't even know what I was gonna have to say to that, but I'm just laughing because of what came to me today. So when people have a problem with the qualities of my existence, meaning that I'm like pigmented, or that I'm expressive, or that I'm not afraid to be seen or to speak, and they bring that problem to me, my response is typically, you better take that shit up with existence, because it made me possible. So because existence is OG, I'm not gonna put myself in a position where I ever feel invalid just because someone doesn't prefer me. That being said, I don't take their lack of preference for me personally, because I know that if I am who I know myself to be, all I can do is attract people who actually are going to appreciate me for that, and repel people who don't appreciate me for that. Therefore, doing myself the favor of putting myself through osmosis, through the natural expression of myself in the realms and environments I most need to be in. But that also includes being willing to show up to things that I'm interested in, that I have no experience in, and being willing to be uncomfortable. It means being willing to move environments, because the location is a quality of a thing. Change the location and you change the thing. So my opinion, to get fucking cosmic here, because we're all cosmogians, in my opinion, is that what we call time and what we think of linearly as time is actually location from a higher dimension. Because everything that exists takes up its own space and angle and dimension and location. And energetically speaking, I will always take up space, right? Sanyu will get old and fucking die, and her bones will be ash, and the ash will be in the whatever. But the thing that walks me around energetically will always have its space. So if I know that location is a quality of a thing, then I know that Sanyu, who exists in Utrecht, the Netherlands, is not the same Sanyu who exists in Los Angeles, is not the same Sanyu who lives in New York, who exists in New York. And the reason that I know that is because I lived with Sanyu of Utrecht, and I live with Sanyu of New York, and I live with Sanyu of LA, and those bitches was all different, okay? And so I give myself the benefit of knowing beyond a doubt what's most necessary for me within the range and the scope that I'm actually capable of discovering at that moment, right? So if I can't like go travel immediately right now, I'll think of the things that I'm sort of interested in, and I'll find my way there, and I'll allow synchronicity to guide me, because existence is always pointing us in the direction of our passion and our highest purpose. We just have to be willing to take a non-linear direction. Non-linear also, though, means not needing proof before we decide to do the thing that we prefer to do. Meaning, I don't need to know people are going to accept me before I show up in a room to see if I'm accepted. All I need to do is be what I am and see what happens and make no judgments about it. Even if I walk home and I'm like, damn, those motherfuckers was whack. End of story. Not because I'm not going to give you the reasons why they're whack, just like I didn't vibe with that motherfucker. So let me say it like this. That situation for me was whack, right? So I am willing also to not have a good time, but I'm constantly learning that that is not a reflection of the possibilities. It's a reflection of the circumstances. So when I don't like the circumstances that I'm in because they don't offer me enough possibilities, I expand my circumstances in whatever ways that I can. And that can even mean going away for a weekend, hollering at a homie and being like, yo, can I roll through your town and like sleep on your couch? People are a resource, so you better use who you know. And you better let them appreciate you and you better appreciate them. Show up with a willingness to do and a willingness to give and a willingness to be there, but also don't be afraid to extend yourself to the people who you do know, because they're obviously an indication, if you guys get along too, of a general network that may also be compatible. So use the resources called your community as well to help you expand yourself, and don't be afraid to either embarrass yourself or be vulnerable. I laugh at myself all the time and it serves me well. So don't be afraid to do that. I hope that was helpful. All right. Well, this is a two-parter. So what are the few top pieces of spiritual advice you'd give to recent college grads? Don't expect to work in your degree field, depending on what you do. There's one, but let me especially grads that are seeking a meaningful career around uplifting oppressed communities. I would say volunteer work is, and I don't mean internships because that's like involuntary and volunteer work where they just trap you in a non-monetary situation. But before I moved to Utrecht, the Netherlands, to learn that I don't really vibe with Sanyu of Utrecht, the Netherlands, I was volunteering at the Women's Downtown shelter or center. I think it's called Women's Downtown Center, but it was a shelter for specifically women and women identifying individuals. And I volunteered for a book club that went into various age groups, schools, to choose a book and to read it and to meet and talk about it. So I put myself in the communities that I thought I wanted to help or that I was curious about helping. And I also volunteered as a tutor for 826 LA. But 826 nonprofit is also a really cool community, so you might just want to look that up, period. And I did it so that I could actually determine whether I really wanted to be in that environment. And I also allow synchronicity to guide me. So, don't assume that the oppressed and those who need to be uplifted aren't in every community. It's like you don't have to go to a fucking NA meeting to meet people who are oppressed. You can just be in the grocery store and be like, that bitch really looks like she's had a fucking life, So there's all kinds of places that you can find that. I would say do whatever you feel compelled and attracted to, and allow yourself to be very present so that you can saturate that experience and get any of the other clues, Easter eggs, or arrows that exist in that context. That being said, if you are in a particular study, for instance, my majors were sociology and government. And then I had specific communities that I was interested in. I was interested in incarcerated populations. I was interested in people who were particularly criminalized for drug and narcotic use, or even alcohol use, substance use, abuse, and use, and sales and all those things. And I was interested in my ancestry and people who look like me as well. So all those things gave me avenues already with which I can see what is available. I'm always going to utilize my resources. In this case, the free source you can use is Google. I always say you need to Google whatever you put in the search bar at least 5 different ways. And you need to look at least 10 pages back, like, especially if there's like 10,000 pages. Then I would even look like 20 pages back. And you can scan that. I don't mean click on everything, but go through and see what attracts you. You have to trust that. Okay, so actually I can say this because I've been enjoying this description. I think that intuition is what you know that you don't know that you know yet. Paradox, inception. But intuition is what you know that you don't know that you know yet. So it's an inclination in a direction that you have an intuition might serve you without the knowledge from the tactile experience to prove that. But the way that you know whether your intuition is good is to go in the direction that it guides you, see what there is to see there, and then decide whether you like it. And then you'll start to refine that ability in a way that you'll trust it to guide you as opposed to not know that it's there. So I hope that that was also helpful. And if anybody else, again, if you're new or weren't here in the beginning, if you have a question, there's the little question mark box by the comment box, and you can leave your question there and I will answer it for you if you have that to ask. We are going on almost half an hour, so let's say we'll wrap it up in the next like 3 to 5 minutes if nobody else has anything to ask. And no question is too out there. I suspend my disbelief all the time so that I can learn what I don't know that I want to know yet. So, and I should also say, just for like the end of what type of questions do you like? It's not about questions that I like. It's about what there is to ask. If there's no questions, I like no questions. It's about what's appropriate for you to do, what you feel called to do. It's not really about what I do, because a lot of the work of giving these messages is not concerning myself at all with the message. Oftentimes I say things and then I forgot that I said them. So it's just working through me to you. Interesting. Okay, I gotta make it big because these boxes are not small. Ooh, I can't even see the rest of it. Bump you, Instagram. Okay, well, that's an interesting story that I hope that you send me in full via text. However, I really like that because I also get that. I have some synchronicity markers that are always present for me. And I realized that whatever it is for you, that it doesn't have to be what is stereotypical, right? So a lot of people will be like, I see synchronicitous numbers, right? 111, 555, 888. That's great. That is a synchronicity marker. But that's not the only synchronicity marker that there is. For me, I recognized that a synchronicity marker is that whenever I happen to look up in the sky, there's a plane. Doesn't matter what fucking city I'm in or almost what time of day it is, but I will look up at the sky and there'll be a plane somewhere in my line of vision. And even sometimes where I'm like, ha, no plane, I'll look even further and I'm like, oh, there is a plane back there. So I know for me that that's a synchronicity marker. For somebody else, it was that no matter what time of day they decided to go running, no matter how they tried to manipulate the schedule, they would always see someone in a red shirt. And so that's a synchronicity marker, right? You just trust that existence is like, boom. So when you get those synchronicities, it's often like you are in the state that you need to be in to do whatever it is that you need to do. You are in your optimal state right now to act in whatever way you feel like acting, meaning pursuing whatever you're passionate about in that moment. And what I like about an alarm system for that literally is it will train you to think about what you were actually attending to in the moment that that took place. So then you can also start to recognize what kind of thoughts are you in your optimal state. especially if there's been something on your mind recently that has been stressful to you, but you've been working at having new definitions or understandings of why it's happening to you. And so while you're developing that neutrality and that sort of androgyny of thought, that paradoxical thought, like, maybe this isn't a bad thing after all. Maybe I needed all this time to know exactly how I need to do it when I go back. That's you being in a state that's optimal to do whatever you need to do, because it's not defeatist. It's not coming from negative belief systems. And it's also providing a framework from which you can continue to succeed or do whatever it is you need to do, rather than using your experience as some people will use experience as an excuse, and other people will use their experience as an opportunity. Doesn't mean that they liked what happened to them, but they're just like, I'ma do what I need to do based on what this taught me. Oh. Let's see. So the date that it happened was the first time since last year to the date. Well, yes, I have this over here. So it's like, yes, great grandma energy is a confirmation. Also, it would be curious if you found out what she did or was known for. It would be interesting to, if you know her name, look up the meaning of each of those names. And if you want, you can send them to me and I will look them up. I'll give them the word nerd treatment. And also to recognize that might just be one of your primary guides and or an other dimensional version of yourself. What I would say is I don't believe in past lives necessarily, because all time exists at once. But I do believe in multiple simultaneous lives. And it recently occurred to me, my great grandma on my grandpa's side has been coming up in readings for me since before I knew her name. And the more that I learn about her, the more that I like. And even now I'm feeling tingly talking about her. And she was funny and agile, and I have a picture of her, and I don't think she was religious, but she was very powerful, and she bore 13 children, and she raised them, and she died when she was in her fucking 90s. So I have all these connections to her, and it only recently occurred to me that we're probably a highly connected simultaneous incarnation where we are very alike in energy. And so I think about her as my guide, in that in linear time, she lived before me. So in my time, in our linear frequency, she is in spirit. So she can be my spirit guide, even though in her time she exists, right? But in her time, I don't know what the fuck I am, because I don't exist yet. So Sanyu doesn't exist yet. So those are some things that I would say. But I would also say, look for the other things other than the alarm, unless you like the alarm and that works for you. Because even when you walk by cars, right, the alarms will go off and stuff. So if you use that as a indication that you are in the proper state, like a fine tuner, then existence will continue to send that through other people walking by you and their alarms going off, the car alarm going off, a ER truck coming by. All those things are alarms. So also consider that as a tuner for you. Let's see what we have here. I just got a cookie fortune with a message that says, in the end, all things will be known. What do you think about it? I think that all things that are knowable already exist. And so in the end, yes, but also in the beginning. I don't think that ultimately one has to learn knowledge from any particular perspective in order to understand something. I've recently been talking to a bunch of scientists lately, and I am not a scientist. I took astronomy as my college credit, and I like chemistry, but I didn't end up pursuing science. But when scientists talk about things, I understand it from a philosophical perspective, because ultimately everything is designed from our concepts, our words, and our languages. So there is a ultimate key. There's a master key to all information through whatever your passion is. You'll know whatever you need to know when you need to know it. That's the same reason that I can do readings, and that's why I call myself claircognizant. Something that I say to people is like, you know, I get worried about not having done a reading in a long time, and that I'm doing a reading for a stranger, and I'm like, oh God, like, I don't know them, like, what? And then I'd be, to myself, be like, calm the fuck down, because we're not psychic, so we don't need to know shit before ahead of time. I'm not psychic. I'm claircognizant. Claircognizant is clear knowing. I know what I need to know when I need to know it about who I need to know about. Not a moment sooner, but also not a moment later. So I have that flash knowledge. I don't necessarily have a deep history in studying a lot of the things that I end up talking to my clients about, but whatever their profession is, I find myself, when I'm talking to them, able to give them information that's helpful to them about it, even though I have no consciousness of that study. So knowledge is always there, but you have to be willing to, again, look a fool. You know, I had to be willing to give readings to people and be like, was that shit crazy to you or what? Like, was that my what? So I was willing to put myself on the line in order to learn something. I was willing to fumble, to sharpen my tool. I think that the clearer that you are and the less that you insist on intellectually understanding why the knowledge is what it is, the more you'll actually discover. Because when you actually come at the knowledge from a place of curiosity, you're going to discover what you need to know about it, not all there is to fucking know about it. If that's not what you need to know, then you don't need to know that. I can speak to a biologist philosophically and say exactly what I need to say to them without knowing all the years of study that they went through. And philosophically, if they're in alignment with themselves, they can do the same thing with what I think and apply what they know to any other modality of understanding, because each of these understandings are just forms of observation. Art, language, math, science, movement, humanity, just all modalities, okay? So if there are no more motherfucking questions, I will, oh, there is, my bad. I didn't see this one down there. Are your thoughts and answers coming from intuition or experience or teaching? Thank you. It comes from all. It comes from whatever aspect of my awareness that I need to draw from. And sometimes I remember things only in the moment that I don't really think about on very often. Like there are things that have happened to me in my life that I never really have in my mind until I'm in a reading where I'm like, oh, well, this one time, now that I'm thinking about it, this is exactly how I can apply my situation. But I'm also someone who is very curious and very willing to communicate, to the point that I am more willing to communicate than I am to feel a way about something. So what that means is I am willing to be uncomfortable to communicate, because the communication is more interesting to me than my own comfort. And so that allows me to put my ego on hold in a lot of situations where otherwise I might emote or ego or talk or walk myself out of the situation simply because it's not what I'm accustomed to doing. I am constantly suspending my disbelief, and I'm also trusting existence and knowing it's OG, and that if it's giving me an experience to have because it's happening to me, that there's something for me to learn in the circumstances, and therefore I don't dismiss anything. I waste nothing if I can help it, and I Nancy Drew the fuck out of every experience that I have. So I hope that was helpful to everybody. It was so nice that you came. My last one was an hour. Oh, snuck it in there, Vanessa. I see you. Oh, on working with the pendulum. Yeah. I would say, for one, you need to figure out what your base rotation is, right? A lot of people will be like, it should go clockwise. It doesn't, there's no fucking math to that. it will go the direction that you are tuned to go. Now, you can say, ask yourself obvious questions. Is my name Sanyu? Okay, great. I'm glad that I know my name. Am I the best, most amazing person in the world? No, I'm not. Am I equally great as everyone is great? Look at this motherfucker be knowing the shits, right? So you got to actually ask questions that are tangible, right? Do I live on this street? Is this the country that I'm in this time, in this language, whatever. Depending on the stone you're using, they might be cheeky, they might be less or more technical. I always say go for a stone that you're attracted to. Establish what's yes, what's no. Some people also use forward and backwards as not time yet. And other will use horizontal back and forth as, like, don't know, can't say. And not time, it might just be like, revisit the situation at another time. Don't know, can't say might be like, it's not for me to answer you, but there might be that instead of a no, because it's not that you're not asking the right question. So find a stone you like, find a shape you like, because they don't have to be pointed all the time like this. You can have a stone that's like a Merkaba or that has a circle on it or whatever. And then see what is yes and no for you. And then don't ask it everything to begin with. Don't trust it for everything and to begin with. Establish a practice of how you're going to use it. Whether you're going to be like, okay, at night, Pendulum, I'd like to use you to decide whether I should say prayers or read a book. Would you be willing to assist me in this process? And then it'll be like, yeah, or it'll be like, no. And then if it isn't willing, can you be like, is it because of the quality of your being, meaning like the stone you are? And it can say yes or no, because then maybe another stone wants to work with you in that way. Also know what the stone is for, unless you have crystal quartz, in which case it's an amplifier. You can use it in general for whatever you want to use it for. And then, limit the way that you use it at first so that you can rely upon the communication and then grow the relationship. And I always ask my pendulums in what way it wishes to be used. And so I'll be like, can I use you for readings, or can I use you today, or do you still want to be used right now? And if it gives me a no, I respect that and I find something else. Yay, I'm glad. I love suspending my disbelief. Another one that I really love to use that I'll leave you guys. Hello. If you have any questions before I go, now that more people are here, there's a little question box, channeling whatever information. Hello. Question box, ask your questions if you have them, I'll answer them. Channeling the information, I've answered a bunch of things. Otherwise, I was just going to say another thing that I really like using that I've had to use this week is, if I were the version of myself that I most preferred to be, how would I respond to this? Because even when people come at me with projections, I want to be the version of myself that I most prefer, meaning I need to understand this situation. It's not so much that they know that they were wrong about what they said to me, because for them that might have been right in the moment and that's what they believed, and I have no control over that. But it's more about looking back at my life and deciding whether I was everything that I could have been according to what I know. And therefore, if I'm checking in with myself before any major event or whatever, saying, if I were the version of myself that I most prefer to be, how would I respond to this? Then my life is made up of the version I most preferred to be and how they would respond. And so then I'm never incapable of being the best version of myself, because every time I'm having a situation that makes me feel doubt or insecurity or anxiety about who I am as a person, I just ask that question, and then I decide from that thought what that version of myself would be, even if 5 minutes later the version of myself that I most prefer to be would do something different. So that also is essential, especially when people are coming at you the wrong fucking way. Because if I was the version of myself I most preferred to be, I wouldn't even be fazed by a bitch. I would be laughing. I would be joyous. I would be okay with whatever circumstance they are coming with, because I know what is theirs and it has nothing to do with what I'm working with. Therefore, I maintain the state I prefer because that's how I most prefer to be regardless. That shit is an interesting practice, because when it actually becomes more or less instinctual, you realize that really nobody can limit your potential regardless of what they think they're doing. Because the thing is, people always want to assess the material as an indication of success or advancement or achievement or havingness. And so when they do that, they fixate on only one type of energy that is also, quite frankly, one of the harder types of energy to manifest, because the material is like, is it harder to decide this bottle doesn't exist, or is it easier to just like walk away and be in a room where the bottle doesn't fucking exist? So there's a lot of emphasis on the material. However, this is because of this linear framework of thinking, this version of existence where we say A goes to B, goes to C, goes to B, goes to, instead of thinking that depending on what shape you're making and what frequency you're on, your lessons can go like this all the time. You know, you could be constantly in this state. So I don't even remember what I was talking about, but there's a message for whoever needed that. Any more questiones before I go away? Because I think we're at about like 45 minutes. So I thank you all for being present, for the moments that you could be present, for asking your questions. I would like to leave you with a little bit of a, let's say, meditation. This is a little bit of a taste of what I'll be doing for my July 29th Ancestral Origins meditation. And let's see what the message is here. Existence, I see your 0-point insistence. I see your ability to allow for all that is without needing to determine what they will be. I appreciate your willingness to give me the space and freedom to discover all of me from every perspective I can imagine within my existence, because you do not limit me. I thank you for allowing me to acknowledge that in every moment, I am in a new dimension and a new reality. There is no going back in time. There is no going forward in the same timeline. There is only extending into the dimensions of space and time that I am the frequency of. Therefore, no matter and regardless of what is taking place outside of me, I know that I, in and of myself, am a world. And regardless of how others choose to revolve around me, I am valid in my own rotation, in my own location. I will see what there is to see within me without invalidating others or needing them to be seen in my image or to see me in the one image that I have, that I am fixating upon. Because existence, you being OG, know all that there is and all that I need. And therefore, I trust you to take me on the journey of me. Always. Okay? All right, guys. Oh, motherfucker with the last minute question. What does OG mean? It means original gangster. Existence is the original gangster. It is the alpha and the omega, the end all be all, the light, the bang, the word, the truth. It is you, me, the table, the mosquito I threatened to kill in the beginning of this video if you didn't get here immediately when I said I was going to kill a mosquito, which I didn't end up doing. So no animals were hurt in the making of this video, which means I should end it now. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Happy full moon tomorrow. And, you know, be the frequency and state that you prefer to be in, and you will always exist in that world. Okay. Bye. Oh, wait. My bad. Wait. Hi. I'm sorry I'm ending it now, but it's going to be up for 24 hours. Bye.